that better? That was thrown in. That's Willie's.
Oh,
I wrote it down, Willie. It says Willie on it.
Willie's stuff.
That's Willie's stuff.
Now look at
I'll keep it coming.
No money coming,
Any
Willie.
checks down
none.
there?
Nope.
No, no money,
See, they think you're already gone.
no money.
There is.
Oh, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Set. Mine. We ready?
Sir.
Really? All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Council meeting of October 4th. Hope everybody's having a great start to the month. Beautiful weather. This time we'll call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We'll declare it open. I'll ask Councilmember Willie Steele to lead us in the pledge and invocation.
Join me in the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for each and every one here and the families that they represent, Lord. And just watch over us tonight as we make decisions. Lord, we just pray that we'll seek your wisdom as we make these decisions that will affect the citizens of our city. Watch over us, watch over our country, Lord, and watch over us as some of us traveled to the conference in Houston this weekend. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
All right, council, we've got two sets of minutes to approve. One for the joint meeting with the Sherman Economic Development Corporation of September 14th, 2021, and the regular city council meeting of September 20th, 2021. Did everybody have a chance to review those?
Move to approve the minutes from SEDCO September 14th, 2021 and regular meeting of September 20th, 2021.
Second. Got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. This time, we'll open it to citizen comments. Anybody have any comments regarding our agenda this evening? Item on our agenda? Not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion without discussion unless a council member or citizen requests a specific item be discussed and voted on separately. Would anybody like these broken apart for any reason?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll open public hearing. If you'll read D1 for us, please.
Appeal for a variance to allow beer and wine sales within 300 feet of a school, Crutchfield Elementary. Ty Osmani, owner, Lucky Stop Number 1, located at 415 South Dewey Avenue.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Brian?
Sir, if the applicant is,
Yes, they are.
they're on, okay, great. So this item is a request for a variance to allow beer and wine sales within 300 feet of Crutchfield Elementary. Ty Osmani is the applicant, property owner of that site, located at 415 South Dewey Avenue. Our ordinances require that alcohol sales establishments that want to locate within 300 feet of a school must come before you to get a variance. Otherwise, if they don't get the variance, those locations are prohibited by ordinance. The Alcoholic Beverage Code allows the city to adopt by ordinance the regulations that would separate alcohol sales establishments, hospitals, churches, and schools by either 300 feet or 1,000 feet if the school district asks this council to adopt that requirement. In this case, staff has gone out to measure and identified that the property line of Crutchfield Elementary is within 300 feet of the property line of the location at 415 South Dewey. I believe it's actually a distance of 70 feet. And Alcoholic Beverage Code specifies how you measure that. And so staff has measured that in accordance with Alcoholic Beverage Code. I understand that the applicant is not challenging the city's regulations or its measurements in this case, but they are in fact seeking a variance, which is a procedure that's spelled out in state law that allows them to come to you to ask for that variance. And if you'll bear with me, I want to just go over what the city council is asked to consider in granting a variance. And whether to grant a variance, there are a number of factors that the city council must look at. Specified in section 109.33E of the Alcoholic Beverage Code. Factors that you'll be asked to consider tonight as part of this variance request are: number one, if the enforcement of the regulation in this particular instance is not in the best interest of the public. Number two, whether enforcement constitutes waste or inefficient use of resources. Three, creates an undue hardship on an applicant for a license or permit, or does not serve its intended purpose. Five, is not effective or necessary. Or six, for any other reason, the city council, after consideration of the health, safety, and welfare of the public and the equity of the situation, determines is in the best interest of the public. Those are the factors spelled out in state law. Happy to answer any questions either now or after the public hearing.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone here to address this item this evening?
Yes, Edgar Korzeniowski, counsel for Mr. Osmani, the applicant.
Okay, can you repeat your name for me, please?
Yes, Edgar Korzeniowski, counsel for the applicant.
Okay, sir.
I just have a very brief presentation. The reasons for the variance request are indicated in our materials. They're in the council's packet from pages 40 to 55. Mr. Osmani is a longtime resident of Sherman, Texas, a small business owner. He also has 32 years of owning and operating convenience stores. He has 6 stores that have an active TBC permit that are in good standing. He wants to add a 7th at the location right next to Crutchfield Elementary. Mr. Osmani had purchased, first of all, we're arguing undue hardship. He had purchased 2 adjoining properties within short succession of each other, one in December of 2018, the other in January of June of 2019, with the intention of redeveloping those pieces. He was going to move the existing storefront over so it wouldn't hit the 300-foot buffer. When he found out that there was a sewer line that needed to be moved at a great expense, that created a hardship for him. He had purchased these properties. He's paying a personal loan. He's also paying taxes, and he can't afford to make the renovations and improvements if he has to go and move the sewage line. So that's one of the reasons why he's asking for that. Another is the waste and inefficient use of land. This location has been unused for some period of time before Mr. Osmani's purchase. And of course, members of council know unused or vacant land can be a nuisance, an attractive nuisance to people that are transient, some criminal element and whatnot. And that may present also public safety issues to children that are going by to that nearby school. Should that variance be granted, Mr. Osmani will, of course, operate the C-store responsibly. He's going to invest several $100,000s in repairs, renovations to get it up to snuff. This includes gutting and rebuilding the interior, putting a new facade to the exterior. And of course, his employees will be working with law enforcement. If there's any vagrants, they're going to be trespassed. Mr. Osmani also intends to hire a security guard for the first few months of operation, make sure that things are in fact running smoothly. We also believe that allowing this variance is in the best interests of the public. It benefits sustainability and long-term viability in the neighborhood by discouraging or reducing blight, discouraging vagrancy, and also adding jobs to the local economy and improving public safety. Mr. Osmani has indicated that he intends to hire anywhere from 6 to 10 employees 5 of those would be full-time positions. He also, again, intends to hire a part-time security guard for the first months of operation. And again, anybody who's loitering, trespassing, he's going to work with law enforcement to make sure to get these people off. And again, help with the neighborhood safety. So again, members of council, we are asking that you consider this variance. If you have any specific questions, Mr. Osmani is on the line and will be willing to answer any.
Okay, thank you very much. And when we close public hearing, the council will have some questions and comments for you.
All right,
Is there
thank you.
Okay, so is there anyone else to address this item this evening? Okay. Linda, can you read D2 for us, please?
Ordinance 6417, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman designating City of Sherman Industrial Reinvestment Zone Number 11, providing eligibility of the zone for commercial industrial tax abatement, containing findings that the area described qualifies for designation as a tax abatement reinvestment zone pursuant to Chapter 312 of the Texas Tax Code, and that the improvements proposed by the land's owner, Texas Instruments Incorporated, are feasible and practicable and of benefit to the land and the city, authorizing the city manager to negotiate written agreements with the owners of any taxable real and tangible personal property located within the designated zone, authorizing the city manager to take all other actions necessary to effectuate the same, providing a repealing clause and severability clause, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Mary?
Yes, this agenda item is for the creation of the reinvestment zone for Texas Instruments and includes only the TI property. This is the first step in granting a tax abatement to TI for their project to add almost $30 billion in value. The first phase of about $6.5 billion is planned for next year. TI's decision is not final. We do expect to hear something by the end of the year. The Reinvestment Committee has recommended approval of the zone creation and the abatement agreement. The next step will be on the October 18th agenda with the consideration for council approval of the tax abatement agreement and the Chapter 380 agreements related to that. The county will also be considering a tax abatement agreement with TI on their October 19th agenda.
Mary, is there anyone here to address this item this evening? Okay. If not, we'll close the public hearing and consider the adoption of the ordinance. Council, we do have a typo on D3. Of course, the ordinance is 6417, not 6471. Questions, discussions?
I move to approve 6417 as written.
Second.
Okay, motion second.
Quick question on that. So we reenact this investment zone and say for not happen. Is there downside to that being or out, or did it just expire, or what's?
Yeah, so the zone actually by law expires every 5 years. I mean, you would have to look at this no later than 5 years to extend it. So to the extent, for instance, not only if they didn't do it, but there's a scenario likely that they come and want to do phase 2. But if they want to do phase 2 longer than 5 years from when this is enacted, sometime between now and then, they would have to reauthorize that for another 5-year period. So.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're going to move G1 up to in reference to applicants. Linda, if you'll read G1 for us, please.
Consider the appeal for a variance to allow beer and wine sales within 300 feet of a school, Crutchfield Elementary. Osmani, owner, Lucky Stop Number 1, located at 415 South Dewey Avenue.
Okay, Ryan, any additional comments or?
Just 2 things to note. One is the council considered a very similar request in 2016. for a variance for the same location. And in that case, in 2016, council decided not to grant the variance. Doesn't mean you can't grant it now, just want to make that, I'll make you aware of that in case it's
Okay.
bearing on your decision. And then the second thing I'd note is that CSAP did reach out to the school district and let them know that this case would be heard, that the applicant is seeking variance on this location. And so far, the school district has not responded or provided it.
Good.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, council, questions, comments?
Just for the record, how far under 300 feet? Is it right
The
at
70
300
feet.
feet? Is it 50 feet? It's less than 300, but how much less?
Using the statutory method of measuring, it is 70 feet from property line to property.
If I'm understanding that correctly, that's mainly city right of way.
Correct.
It's a road, so it's the adjacent property.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, yeah.
I guess my question is, sir, when this property was originally purchased, and you referenced something about moving the building further away, but I'm assuming that Mr. Osami knew that it was within the 300 feet when he purchased the property?
Yes, Your Honor. My understanding is that he was aware of the 300-foot buffer, and that's why he was purchasing the adjacent property in case he needed to go and move or shorten the store or whatnot.
Okay, so he had plans, I guess, to spend $400,000 to move the building or reconstruct the building, and the sewer line has been his budget over what he's willing to pay. Is that correct?
That's correct. And he had no notice or reason to believe or understand that there would have been this problem with the sewer line.
The sewer line was quoted at an additional $50,000.
And that's what he told me, yes.
Could I ask a question? And I don't think this would make any difference, but if there doesn't seem to be a buffer at all between the two properties, basically the property lines butt up to each other, except for the easement. If there were a buffer put there, and I'm talking, I guess, a chain link fence, does that make any difference in the state code?
No, it does not. The state provides that you measure property line to property line. So
Okay.
whatever that distance is going to be what it is, no matter what happens to side or be located.
All right.
So why is the sewer line need to be removed?
I understand it, Darren, that it's in the way of where he's wanting to.
Oh, okay.
And Ryan, I don't know who measured this or what, but just from, kind of my pencil measuring stick here, it looks like the parking lot is probably greater than 300 feet away from the school's property edge. And I mean, would something for a simple plat change for this person be something that could be feasible to get him 300 feet away?
No, not assuming the property in question that he would seek to locate alcohol sales establishment would be in the general vicinity of where it is today. A replat would not change the dynamic how the state requires us to measure.
I got you.
I have another question, and that is, I understand that from what I read, that there's, Mr. Osami seems to feel that there's a need for beer and wine sales in order for this business to be successful. But I do know that in Sherman, this area has been described as a food desert, and that we really could use even a mini grocery store, a small grocery store in that area. If we do not approve of the beer and wine sale, would he give any thought or consideration, you may not be able to answer for him, to setting up a grocery store? And I know it would be small, but in that area, our citizens and residents really do need access to more opportunities to shop for groceries.
Okay. Mr. Asmani is on the line. One thing I can say on his behalf before I give him a chance to speak is he does intend to sell some cooked food items. You mentioned crispy chicken fingers, I think hot dogs and other stuff, but I'll have to turn to him and have him respond. Mr. Asmani, can you answer Councilwoman's question?
Yes, sir. My intention is we are gonna sell the crispy crunchy chicken over there and hot food, and also question to the lady about the small grocery store right next to me, and on the block there is a Dollar General, which they carry quite a bit grocery items, and I don't think so I will be able to compete with them, me being small operator.
Council, any further discussion? Got a motion on this item? No motion?
Motion to deny.
And I'll second that.
Okay, motion's a deny with a second. All in favor of the denial?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is denied. Thank you, Mr. Obasami, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda, if you'll read E1 for us, please.
Resolution 6780, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of an economic development program agreement with Super Shack LLC for the grant of incentives pursuant to Chapter 380 of the Texas Local Government Code. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Terrence?
Mayor, Council, in March of 2019, you all approved a program trying to incentivize retail recruitment. And this is our third applicant as a result of that program, which is Super Shack, a new restaurant that will be opening up in Sherman in the next few weeks, requesting to have their sales tax rebated for 2 years up to 50%.
Council, discussion, questions?
I'm glad we have people taking advantage of those.
Do we have a timeline for them to come online?
They are actually supposed to be online October 1. They were hoping to be online September 1, but they're doing extensive remodel. In fact, our planning department might let us know how far along they are. Okay.
There you go.
And that's a seafood place, Terrence?
Seafood, Darren can tell you all about it.
Yeah, it's a seafood place, very, very good seafood place. Nice family, everybody. They've been working around the clock to get this thing open and trying to stay within alignment of the city and all the needs that the city do to keep them going forward. So
This is a restaurant that Councilman Holland introduced to Sherman. And actually, he and I drove them around to look at different facilities that were available, and they chose the old Applebee's location.
I will say, just for my 2 cents input, I like that there are restaurateurs that are willing to consider going into an existing spot instead of leaving a vacant spot. I mean, this to me is right in the sweet spot of what we are trying to accomplish with this program. So
I move to approve.
second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you. You'll read E2 for us, please.
Resolution 6781, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of a professional engineering design services agreement with Cpny Incorporated for the design of Moore Street from Park Avenue to Center Street. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Yolanda. Wayne?
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. This is a engineering design services for the design of Moore Street from Park Avenue to Center Street. This is on the city's master thoroughfare plan, as well as our 5-year CIP plan. It's about 7,800 feet of ultimately 4-lane boulevard. CPNY will be designing for the 4-lane boulevard. They'll provide us construction plans to build half of that to begin with. The contract's $520,000. Anticipate their design to be completed next fall.
Thank you, Wayne. Council, questions, discussion?
So this is a road to somewhere.
It's the yellow brick road.
That's because you requested it.
Yep.
Yes, this is a road that goes north from Park Avenue to Center Street.
Other questions?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. All right, Linda, if you'll read E3 for us, please.
Resolution 6782, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of a professional design services agreement with Kimberly Horn and Associates Incorporated for the design of Shepherd Drive from US 75 to Farmington Road. Finding the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Linda, Wayne?
Yes, sir. So this is another engineering design services agreement. This is for Shepherd Drive with Shepherd Place, TI, other developments that are knocking on our door in this area. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve with this master thoroughfare planned road. It's supposed to ultimately be a 6-lane divided road. Kimberly Horn will do an alignment study from US 75 to Farmington, which is about 11,200 feet. They will give us up to 30% designed plans for that 6 lanes along Shepherd Drive PD only. This will help us set the horizontal and vertical pretty firmly with Shepherd Place PD, and also set up the horizontal alignment further west as those properties develop over time, and we know what kind of right of way we need from those properties. This is a $370,000 contract, and anticipate Horn to be finished with these services by next summer.
Wayne, council, any comments, questions?
So I know we approved the plan development plan at council, but I don't know if we've seen anything else come back on that particular development as far as final plats or anything of that nature. How far along, do you know how far along they are in this process? Obviously, if we're planning a road, we have an idea that they're probably pretty far along. They have they're conceptual. They really wanted to nail down the horizontal and vertical at Shepherd Drive itself before they get, too deep into their vertical mass grading and layouts.
We're also talking about this in executive session today. Got more details on the project itself and economic development agreement with them. So they are moving along, but this particular project is related to several things going on in this area that Texas Instruments, the water line expansion project as well, and then Shepherd Place. So we'll give you more details on those aspects of the program here in executive session. But things are moving.
I have a little bit of a concern that that's a lot of money to pay up front, hoping that TI, will expand here. What if they don't? And we are hoping that this plan development will go forward. And, I know we have to have the plans because things are happening so fast, but that's just a lot of money to spend on a maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one thing I'd say about that, and I don't disagree with what you've said, it's a lot of money. And right now, there's nothing kind of on the ground, right? We don't have any, other than a plan development that's been approved. We don't have any development agreements, whatever. Two points though. Number one, this road is on our master thoroughfare plan. So we know it's not a matter of if, it's when it needs to be developed. Number two, part of the purpose of us doing this and any other types of plans like this are so that we can identify the scope of the project, the actual where the road is going to go, so that we can acquire the right of way. And right of way acquisition costs are going up significantly because land prices are going up significantly around town. So the other thing this allows us to do, whether we build the road now in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years is know what the alignment's going to be and get the right of way for when we are ready, because we'll have to come back to the council to get council approval to build anything, right? Or to even finalize the rest of the engineering plans. Or so to me, it's one of just planning for the future, literally lining out the road so that we can get the right of way for whenever the right time to build it is going.
But maybe we can be in executive session and have that conversation that you said is coming later before we approve this.
I was going to ask, can we table this till after exec?
Sure.
I think putting the cart before the horse, even with us, is not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we can take it however you guys want to do it.
Do we have to move the table or can we just take it out of order?
I think if you could just take it out of order and not take action.
Okay.
Time to Make sure.
Hey, real quick question, Wayne. I think you alluded to that and may have missed the exact explanation, but the design on this road is 150,000 less than more. To me, it would seem like this is, but they're not doing it all. They're just doing to the red arrow and only 30%. Explain that to me again.
Correct. They're only doing a 30% design from US 75 to those red arrows. The remainder is basically just a horizontal schematic where best to place the right of way. We're doing the 30% horizontal and vertical along Shepherd Place, so that again they have a better idea where that road has to be placed horizontally and vertically, so they know how to take off from there into their subdivision. There's a lot of grade difference out there.
And when we were looking at the Marilee water line, there's also a lot of Encore utility poles.
Yes.
Big poles all over the place. And so we kind of internally made some decisions on the alignment of the road so that we could put the water line in. But we really need the full alignment of this road so we can make decisions on where Encore's poles go. If they expand in the future, we know where the road's going to be versus the median versus edge of road. So there's a lot of more complicated pieces of this, and having that alignment study all the way to Farmington would really help lock in exactly where this 6-lane road is going to be. And then as development comes online, we can get that right away dedicated to us on the front end. So there's a lot of value to this, even if the PD wasn't there. It's just a matter of, I think the PD, the plan development, and TI has kind of moved this forward in time. So should we be expecting, this is almost $400,000 of an expense. Should we be expecting another $600,000 of engineering to come back?
For final design.
Final design?
If everything goes through,
yeah,
there's a need for it.
Yeah, the thought was, let's get this set up, and when we know that the PD is real and TI is real, and they're going to start construction or start their final design, we'll have time to go from 30 to 100% and be more confident in the project as a whole.
Yes. Yes, please, if you'll come state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Brian Parks. I live on Shepherd Drive, 1420 West Shepherd Drive. I was just wondering what prompted the city to do a 6-lane road, because I can't think of any other 6-lane roads in Sherman.
Ask that question. They have a good answer.
Oh, you asked the question? Okay.
Okay.
So in our thoroughfare plan, we try to plan out major corridors, east, west, and north, south. And so east, west, you got 1417, which ultimately is a 6-lane. And then you have 902, I think, is the other east, west, and then Shepherd falls right in between those two. If you think about, it's a little bit further south than we would prefer, but to go further north, you're running into the Choctaw Creek, and it doesn't make sense at all to put a 6-lane road right next to the creek. So on our thoroughfare plan map, that's what it shows. So we try to plan for that. The classic example that everyone talks about is 380 through McKinney. We don't want that to happen. And so having east-west corridors other than just 82 through Grayson County are important.
And
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's part of this alignment is to figure out where we think on the engineering side it needs to be, but then also talk with the actual property owners to make sure that it aligns with future development. Clint, just to clarify, even if this were planned to be a 6-lane and right of way was acquired, more than likely there's going to be 2 or 4 lanes built. Yeah, that's the question. And we'll probably do a traffic impact analysis on the plan development to determine what level of service it needs to be. With it being 6 lanes, it's unique than what we've done before. So with 6 lanes, you can look at a 2-lane option, a 3-lane option, which would be 2 lanes with a continuous left turn, or a 4-lane option. So there's a lot of pieces to it. Again, trying to stretch the money that we have to serve the actual development that we see on the ground is going to be the key to this. But yeah, we'll look at getting the entire right of way width that we need, and then construct just the right amount.
I appreciate the fact that we're going to table this until later to get more information. But I want to make sure that we make it clear to our citizens, we're spending a lot of money, and being up here, it's easy for me to see where we're going and why we're doing these plans. But when we have citizens who are driving over, big chuck holes, and they're not seeing us out there necessarily fixing them, not saying you can, just there's more than they can keep up with. I just want to make sure that we let our citizens know why we need to do this and where we're going with it and how they will be benefiting from it. Because right now, all they see is the fact that they're having to get their front ends realigned because of rough streets in many areas. That would go a long way towards fixing some streets, I think. So anyway.
I'm curious how you heard about it. Were you contacted by the city, or did you just read it on an agenda?
I've actually read it.
Oh, I'd be paying attention too.
Okay.
And since last January, just the plan development was just kind of
It wasn't even
hope
there.
and a prayer at that point. So things progress quickly on some of these developments. And so we kind of try to be set up so that we can react to them so that it's developed appropriately and not just thrown together. And then we got to figure out where to finish the road.
The other thing about the alignment also is right now, that's just lines on a page, right? I mean, it's just a conceptual, fairly straight line from 75, and then it bends a little bit. I mean, that's what this study would do, is taking into consideration elevations and alignments and property owners' needs and wants, and
Utility poles.
balancing all of those things is the goal of a study like this. So it's very expensive for us to go through the middle of someone's swimming pool.
I was gonna say, we're
Right,
gonna have big
so-
buying a lot of property.
So we prefer not to go through people's swimming pools or pipe fences or houses or things like that. So there'd be much more work on this, but we'll discuss this with the council and then figure out.
Maybe you can
where to go
charge a
from there.
toll as people drive through your pool. They do in Dallas.
All right, so we'll come back to E3. Linda, if you'll read E4 for us.
Resolution 6783, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing the purchase of a 2022 armored vehicle for the Sherman Police Department from the Armored Group through the Texas Local Government Purchasing Cooperative by Board. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Bruce, come tell us about this truck. It looks pretty awesome.
You gonna get to drive it?
It's up to you all tonight. Mr. Mayor, council, staff, thank you all. Yes, this is the vehicle we had talked about at the budget meetings and everything. It is an example of what we hope to get. Have gotten quotes from this company. Matches the specifications that we want as far as protection and act to tactically fit the number of people that we have on the team. It's got a lot of features I included in the packet, some idea, but it's rated for 50 caliber. Our guys safe. It's also, it'll have a ballistic ram on it that we can better, safer approaches, station portals. Walk up with the ballistic. It's got a long pole. Basically, you just kind of drive up, push the door. Its main thing is protection for the officers, but also distracting civilians or down officers or firemen or tactical firemen. Specific design has doors on both sides, which makes it tactically advantageous for us instead of having to just decide that we can only. Questions?
So do we have a specific spot we're going to keep this at the new police department or?
Yes, we do. They're in the annex portion of the new PD. This will actually be parked in there. Power that would be needed. Charged and protected as much as possible. And it's not one that you're going to see driving around town.
Okay.
Not something we're going to use for the raids and things like that. This would just be used for when our special response team is activated. Saw on the news recently, I guess in the last few months here, Honey Grove had a situation in which the person was armed with an assault. Hit an officer and they had trouble getting that officer distracted because the round officer were going through. That was part of the delay in getting.
Whereas this money that we're using to purchase this is not actually coming from the budget, correct?
The majority of it is coming out of seizure fund. Dollars of it is coming from drug seizure money.
Move to approve.
Second.
Just a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. All right, we're to other, well, brought that one up. Linda, if you'll read G2 for us, please. Item listed twice.
Consider approval of the annexation scheduling plan for adoption of approximately 142.223 acres of land located north of FM 1417 Vietnam Veterans Parkway, east of US Highway 75 and south of Post Oak Creek, adjacent to the Sherman city limits and in the city of Sherman's extraterritorial jurisdiction, and directing the Department of Engineering Services to develop a service plan for the area to be annexed upon approval of the annexation scheduling plan.
Thank you, Linda. Wayne?
Yes, so this is about 142 acres of land that has been voluntarily requested to be annexed east of 75, north of 1417. We've seen from the developer a preliminary plat of the subdivision called Travis Heights in this area. It's about a 400 lot subdivision per the preliminary plat. There's a zone change that was also approved at P&Z that's pending on annexation. We've got this scheduled for ordinance adoption with the scheduled plan for October 18th.
Wayne, council, questions? This area? There's no
Okay.
questions.
Has questions, then I'll make a motion that we approve the annexation.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And this is
Second,
just for
Mayor.
clarity, this is setting a motion to set the annexation calendar and plan.
Right, sure.
Yes.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I think it was all implied.
Just a date.
Right. To item G3, consider possible changes to Chapter 3 building regulations regarding requirements for engineered framing plans to be submitted to the city for new residential and commercial buildings. Good evening, Rob.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In December 2020, we updated our building codes to the 2018 standards. Currently, our department requires engineered plans for multifamily and commercial buildings over 5 feet, as per our building code requirements. What we're coming to you today to discuss is that some of our peer cities require engineered plans for the framing of buildings for all new single family as well. And they've codified this requirement in their ordinances. Some of our home builders are already used to doing this, and some of our peer cities to the south, providing these engineered framing plans. What these framing plans would do is just give extra assurance to the city that these new homes are built to standards. There are, I believe, 16 different ways to properly build the framing of a wall to make sure it's secure. And staff is looking for direction from you all on whether we should proceed with this proposed new requirement. You know, Councilman Member Stevenson has been involved with us on this, and Larry Bollier, our chief building official, is here to answer.
Should I go down there?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
You're welcome to.
So I look at, and I was just sitting here doing the math, about 7,000 inspections a year in my professional role as an engineering inspector. The majority of those in cities to the south that are experiencing a high rate of growth. And I think we got some pictures in here. Can you?
Oh,
Next one. That one. This was a house that was 100% brand new, just finished, completed. And it had everything on it except for the external shear wall portion of the home. And then a windstorm came through and the entire house fell down. Now, I include this picture to show you that even with brand new solid lumber, modern frame houses, engineering design and shear wall makes those houses much, much stronger. And without these engineered portions of the home, all homes are susceptible to failure, especially during high wind periods. Through the years, the state of Texas, in its infinite wisdom, has slowly but surely changed and lowered the standard for products that are required to go into a home. Before we had computer aided drafting and design, you just threw up a bunch of lumber and you put big, thick plywood or OSB on the outside, and that's what you did. Well, now that we have the computers and the engineers, and slowly but surely over time, the products we build houses with have become less substantial and, quite frankly, lighter. And at the same time, the slopes of our roofs, the pitches of our roofs have gone up and up and up. And it has increased wind load capacities that these houses experience. And the weather is getting more volatile with every year, it seems. Properties that I worked on and homes built by large builders and small builders alike in most cities that are experiencing growth require an engineered frame and an engineered shear wall to ensure that those houses that are built through the computer drafting that we do can stand up to 125-mile-per-hour winds. That's the standard. Without the special engineered panels and shear wall and engineered frames, homes are susceptible to collapsing like this, to being blown off their foundations, especially during tornadoes. That's really what all this stuff goes for. The reason I brought it to the city in the first place is we're going to experience a high rate of growth, and a lot of the home builders that are building houses build the same houses in other cities. And those same houses being built in other cities, because the other cities are requiring it, are built with a lot more safety features to prevent houses from collapsing during high winds. It would be a real shame, in my estimation, if we allowed the same houses to be built, but without the same high standards and, quite frankly, without the same level of safety, because we have not codified and required them to in our rules to build here in Sherman. Did I miss anything?
This is not a picture from Sherman.
This is Prosper, Texas. Can you go to the next picture?
So I got a question on that slide there,
Yeah.
Josh. So what you're saying is if it had been designed properly, it wouldn't have fallen at that state. If you go back to that slide,
Yeah.
there's houses that
Yeah.
haven't fallen.
So this, they had got done.
Obviously that house is gonna fall because it wasn't wrapped yet. It didn't have.
That's right. They had built the house. They had put all the framing up. It was fully framed, but the only thing they hadn't done is put the shear wall on the outside. They were one step away from putting the shear wall on the outside in a
But what I'm
big
missing,
storm brand.
I'm missing in this is why that house was gonna fall down, whether it was wanted to be or not, because it wasn't wrapped.
Well-
It was 2 days away from being finished and.
Right, but without having an engineered shear wall on it, if it didn't have any shear wall on it. It didn't have an engineered shear wall, didn't have any shear wall on it, and a wind load came and it fell down. The houses we build, because they're not engineered in Sherman, there's no way to tell if the shear wall that's going on them is accurate or not, because, and I'm gonna get into a little sort of a wonky speak, because the state of Texas allows houses to be built with T-ply now instead of plywood, anybody can build with T-ply exterior sheathing on a house, anybody. But if it's not an engineered T-ply product, it can fall down and wind load. So this didn't have any T-ply on it, but I included it to prove the point. If you're allowing people to build houses that aren't engineered and they're building with these T-ply products, could very well be the result.
Larry, do you see any problems if we do this?
Problems with it, I mean, talking about T-ply is structural sheathing. IRC doesn't require any engineering on houses because if you build them to code, they're going to withstand the shear walls because all the shear walls is basically what they use as a term in the IBC. And these are actually considered brace walls in the IRC. And they're basically the same thing. That's just how they split the two differences up. Every wall needs to be braced. And most of the builders here are sending us engineered sheets. All builders are not required. I mean, IRC doesn't require engineering at all on engineering unless it's over, like you said, 5,000 square feet. But it's to my knowledge, I would think it would be a good idea to have a engineered wall put up to take the wind loads and the seismic loads. I know we don't have a lot of earthquakes around here, but we need to cover these areas. And I have dealt with a couple of builders just this past week, hasn't got a clue what I'm talking about when I start talking about brace walls and shear walls, which goes back to what
That shows that
Mr.
it's
Stevens was
needed.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So even though the IRC doesn't require it, I think it would be a good asset to our building because there's 16 methods of putting these walls in, whether you use gypsum board or OSB, or if you do continuous sheathing, however you want to do it. They even have the lead in bracing. I mean, there's so many ways to do this. But if we don't have an engineered design, most of the cities to the south of us, I say most of them because I called several of them, and most of them have a third party that comes in and does the inspection. Of course, they're doing a lot of, the reason they give me that, the reason they do that is because they haven't got enough inspectors to take care of the load that's in the Dallas or that area. And the other cities are having the engineered design. And when they put the engineer design out there, then they enforce the engineer design.
Yeah.
So do you see, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sir.
How many failures do we have now when you go out to do final inspection of the framing that you see?
Well, we're not really failing anything on the frame, and not all that much, because most of these guys are pretty good builders, and we stay on top of them, make sure that we enforce the codes completely as they're written. And if you do this, what you do, you got the load of the roof that comes down to the load of the walls, and it all goes down to the ground. All those shear walls are is to keep the walls from racking. Like what happened here without the shear walls is like a dominoes. You stack the dominoes up and the wind gets to pushing and they're gonna rack and they're gonna fall down. If you got the shear walls up, if you got the braced walls in, then that's gonna stop it.
So are you saying we don't require shear walls at all?
Yeah, we
now?
require them.
We require
They
them.
are
But
required.
they're
yes.
not required to be engineered.
They're not required.
Can
to
you
be
show the next
engineered.
picture? So if you see there's this wall and there's these two metal things coming out of the concrete. These are HTT10 hold downs. Most engineered shear wall and frames now will include these, and this is so that the house literally doesn't get blown off its foundation, one, and two, they're usually at the garages, because when you have a tornado, usually the first thing that gives out is your garage door. Then you have an explosion event inside the house, and then the garage fails and the rest of the house falls down. Go to the next picture. This is literally the exact same house built in Sherman, and you'll notice it has no hold downs. The reason it has no hold downs is because we don't require it through our statute.
Larry, would it
But-
make your job easier to have this in place too?
Yeah, it always makes it easier. What it does, if you have an engineered design, it takes it off the city of Sherman's
Yes.
back. And it puts it on the engineer.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
I like
What kind of
that.
added
So-
cost are we talking here to the builders?
I talked to some today on this, matter of fact, how much it's costing to have this design, have an engineer design this, and I've got one that told me it was $1,000 to the cost of the plans to have that plan done, just for the shear wall.
So it's less than 1%.
Well, and this goes back to our codes as far as wind rating and all that, just based on the amount of houses that are about to be built, if we say, yeah, let's require these drawings on every house coming in, what's that going to do to your staff?
Well, can I address that? real
Made it
quick?
easier.
If we require them to have engineered foundation and shear wall, then the engineer companies that they hire will also be financially liable. And the engineered companies will perform their own inspections, which means that we can increase our inspections, increase our requirements, and at the same time not give ourselves more workload on the city side. Because if we're requiring it to be engineered, then the engineer will also perform an inspection. We can make that part of our code, but we won't send our people out to do their inspection until they're to pass it on their own accord.
Well, most of the engineering firms want a third party, or do you think there are cities that do internally? I mean, Larry talked to some that don't do it internally, but that's a staffing issue. Do you think there are engineering firms that they don't care whether it's third party or not, or versus a city doing it? Doing
Well,
these
if we're
inspections after it's
if we're
engineered?
not responsible for the design, why are we inspecting?
Well, it would be inspecting just like we inspect framing and plumbing and HVAC and
It's
electrical.
just like the foundations. Foundations, if you're doing post tension, they're engineered, but we still go out and do the inspections on them.
And so to understand this all the way, you're
We're-
saying this is only going to be engineering for the shear factor, not the entire.
Not the entire framing plan.
Framing
The only
package.
thing that's being engineered is the actual wall bracing and the shear walls. And the building codes on the building side of it, on commercial buildings, they're all engineered. All those plans are over 5,000 square feet. All those plans are generally engineered, so we don't have to worry about it there. Where we got a problem is over here on the IRC part of it, on the residential part of it, that there's so many different ways to put these things in. What we need to do, if we get the engineer to draw it up, we just need to be sure that the way he draws it up is enforced and that it's to plan.
And to drill down on that a little bit, when you go through and look at the RC, you keep saying there's 16 ways. There's 16 different ways that the code book says you could do it this way or this way or this way or this way and this way. Well, it's a lot of work for a city inspector to go in and have to know all 16 ways to on their own decide whether or not one of those 16 ways was properly applied. But if you say you got to get it engineered and your engineer says, here's the plan and here's how you're going to build it, so it's the code, Now all our guys have to go and do is say, well, here's the plan that your engineer said it had to be like this. And now we're just checking against the plan, which reduces sort of the brain power and the manpower and the time that you're spending on site, because you're not having to interpret, and our inspectors aren't having to interpret a very long and confusing IRC. That,
Well, it's not a problem in interpreting because there's it just helps us to be able to have a professional to design these walls.
plus they're paying per model. They're not paying per house. Like,
So you're saying $1,000 for the plan. So then what additional cost is involved in your little tie down brackets and all the stuff that's going to go on?
for the typical, and I was asking today for some people, it's about $400.
Those aren't really additional anyway. If they're doing it to plan, doing it to code, they should already be doing that. They should be doing one method or another on these houses regardless.
So that one would have failed?
No, well, this one here probably won't fail just because it don't have hold downs, because all of these walls do not require hold downs. That's just one of the methods that they do. If it's used to, when we build houses, we build a square house. And they put OSB all the way around or plywood all the way around. I remember them back years ago now these houses are getting so complex. Get these big, like he's talking about before, these steep roofs, and you got them going in every direction. There's so many different wall lines that you got to take in consideration, so many different things. And in this area here, you get the wind shear is our biggest problem. We're always got these big wind storms coming through. And we don't want to see anything fail like that other picture. Now, I've got pictures in my books that actually shows houses completed with brick on them. It's falling down just like this house did. And that's the reason we feel like that we need to have that part of it engineered. And most of the towns south of us, cities south of us, they do require engineering.
So I'm still not clear on the inspection part of it. You're gonna.
The inspection part of it's just like a regular framing inspection. We go out and do our framing inspection. And the way they do it south is, I've talked to 3 cities that do it south, is they won't even do a framing inspection until the third party, if you're going third party, actually does the inspection and they got their tags hanging. They won't go out and do a framing. But if we're doing them in-house, then we're going to look, see what method that they're doing, and we're going to go out and we're going to make sure that that method is followed. However, the engineer drew it up. That's just like when we do any plan reviews and we come in, we okay a plan, we're going to make sure it's done to that plan. We're not going to deviate unless they want to come in and change something up, then they have to bring us another plan. And we'll look at it and make sure that it's going to meet codes.
So now when you go out and do an inspection and the shear wall is required, you inspect it.
I inspect it. Yes,
and if it's up to code, you pass it.
pass it. Yes, sir.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm confused about is what is this additional step to the builder adding to make it a better formula?
Well, it's just, yeah, it's cost basically. I mean, it's going to be $1,000 at least probably to.
They're gonna pass it off to the purchaser anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's the wrong answer.
But they're already doing it.
Well, I mean, and that's my point is if you're a production builder and you're building in Prosper and Salina and Little Elm and Melissa or Anna, okay, there's a higher requirement. You need an engineered plan, which means you're going to have hold downs. You're going to have steel strapping. You're going to have lead in bracing. You're going to have all of these things to increase the safety of this house. But if you build it in Sherman,
I would be safe to say probably that the majority of the builders that are building in Sherman do not build.
The smaller builders.
They're building strictly in.
I would say that's true for the local builders.
I would say that
we've got a lot
I'd
of.
say that's
regional
true
and-
for the next
No, I
6
understand,
months.
but I think this is putting a burden on our local builders.
What I'm confused about is it doesn't sound like the requirement's changing. They already require the shear walls.
Required. Yes, sir.
All this is doing is adding a step to the builder to tell you how they're
Liability
going
on
to do
these
it.
guys
Right.
and put it on an engineer.
And now we have to have a third party. So
Or we can do it
we're
in-house.
making some jobs and putting it on the back of our home buyers.
More government on them.
Actually, we were not requesting any third party because we know we can do this in-house. We have no problem there. In fact, I've been talking with my inspectors for the last 2 or 3 weeks over this very issue. and making sure that everybody, I've got them books, I've got them everything, told them get into this and be sure that we're following each method and make sure we know what we're looking at when you go out there.
Rob, where did this originate? Did it come from the state? Did it come from just? Where did this come from?
Came from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I assume, but.
Yeah, Mr. Stevenson mentioned that he's doing inspections for other cities and that they require that. And so he asked me to look into it. This was us looking into it. We came up with the determination that, hey, this would probably be a good idea for the city. Have that extra assurance, make sure walls are built correctly.
You're saying most cities to the south, others some city. Give me an example of a city that's not.
So Salina, Prosper, Frisco, McKinney, Plano require it. Anna Melissa, from what we saw online, didn't require that at this point in time.
Really want to be in there with McKinney, Frisco, and Plano. Yes, Mr. Tracy, you had a question for us.
From a homeowner's perspective, I've lived here now in Sherman for 10 years. I spent 2 years looking for a house, and virtually every house that I looked at in Sherman had foundation and structural problems. And I had inspectors go into those houses, and on one of those houses, the inspector called me up to the attic, and you could literally put your hand between the end of the roof rafter and the main strut that was going through there. And doors, you couldn't close doors. And ironically, the house that I finally bought was on the south side of town that I didn't want to be on, the southeast side of town. And that house was built by the high school. And it has a lot of amenities that you won't find in a normal home. And a thing that has amazed me, that the ceiling joist over the garage are 2x12s. The ceiling joist over the inside of the house are 2x6s, and the roof rafters are all 2x6s. So that house was built with a lot of extra amenities to it. And something like this is going to be beneficial for the homeowners.
And I'm sorry, I'm just a little dense on this, and I apologize for continuing to ask this same question. But I'm trying to figure out, is the product any different at the end today versus with an engineered plan or without an engineered plan?
Actually, no, I don't believe it's going to be any difference for the product because we're going to make them do it to code either way. And this is just, it's just making sure that these systems are engineered and that they are properly engineered. Because like I said, I've talked to 2 builders this past week, and I don't want to mention any names who they were, but they don't even have a clue what I was talking about when I started saying actually what I wanted was a plan on the brace walls so I could see what he was doing. And they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. So if each house had a design system on it, regardless of all the new homes, of course, you're doing remodels, so that's a little bit different. But if you're doing all these new homes, we want to be sure everything's done the way it's supposed to be, and that when we get these plans in and we're looking for it, that these people actually know what they're doing when they're building them.
So in that case with this builder.
I mean, we go out there and we red tag them, we go back, we red tag them.
That's what I was gonna
We
say.
get into that
You
all
just
the
show up
time.
and tag them.
Yeah, we do that. We do that all the time. I mean, I don't know how many, all these houses definitely do not pass until we're satisfied that they meet the code, because there's several times we go out there 3 or 4 times to get one before we can even green tag it to pass it.
So you guys are, I mean, and I'm fishing for some answers that'll help me with this. So are you guys, y'all are having an abundance of people who aren't shear walling now that you're having to tag them?
Not a bunch, of just a couple of builders. But they are doing it by the time we're done. They're doing it. Because we're gonna make them put them in regardless. I mean, we're gonna make them do it. These questions come to our office and brought to our attention. So I've been spending a whole lot of time on it in the past month or so, just working on this issue alone, making sure everything. That's the reason we come here, thinking that maybe this would be kind of a one way that we can make sure everybody's getting them designed properly. So it's more to it than just going out there and nailing plywood on the side. Now they actually use the walls inside the house as some of the shear when the wind pushes against these walls, and that's Simpson on one side, or there's so many different ways they can do this. So we can do it. We're still going to have them put them in regardless if we their system or not. I was asked
So the 4 trips you went out to inspect and red tag, come back, red tag. If they had just done it right the first time, you would have been on to the next house. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, you go out, you red tag one. We don't want to red tag one because that's just the extra trips we have to go back. And then, of course, then you get everybody starting to get aggravated with you because red tagging them and you explain what's wrong. And this is in every field and every aspect of the building. But, it happens and it's part of our job. We just have to sure that's the reason the red tags are out there. That's just.
But if we get this on the books, this would make everybody uniform. They'd know ahead of time.
Well, it's our code anyway.
Before
That's
these,
what I don't understand.
before these planned developments start taking off and we start building a whole lot more houses than we've ever built before, this is one of the issues that A, we can have safer houses built, and B, we can reduce some of the burden and the strain on the city.
But if the houses here are built to code, then they'll have those features anyway.
Built to code and built engineered are not necessarily the same.
Well, yeah. Well, as per the IRC, that's the reason it's not engineered. It's supposed to withstand the wind and the seismic loads. But that's the reason they don't require them to be engineered as per the IRC.
So what we're asking tonight is just some guidance, direction on whether you want us to pursue this as council, and we'll get back to work and write something up if you do, and if not, we'll keep proceeding.
I haven't heard anything that convinces me we need to do. Hey, we've got a safe house that's inspected and it's up to our code. It's on our builders, who then passes it on to the homeowners. I'm going to be the only one.
I think the majority of houses going to be built are by people who are already paying for these services anyway, so we should require it.
I respect that. I respect every bit of this. I just don't think what I've heard tonight.
I'd like to, and I don't want to push this off, but I feel like we're getting to the same place, whether we require it or not, from what I've heard tonight. And so I'd like to see how this would be more efficient if we did it, because I hadn't heard a justifiable reason to put it in place other than it's going to put a more burden on the builder. So.
And one response to that would be in our conversation with the building official in Prosper. I asked them that question, why did you decide to do this since it's not in the code to require it? And his response directly was to help us with time. They have 1,000 homes a year that they're doing. Salina's 300 a month that they're doing. And so it was just extra to what Mr. Stevenson said, to just expand our resources a little bit. So
the answer wasn't it was a safer house. His answer was it's saving time.
That was what his answer was. Yeah.
And I would say if you guys brought me back something that showed how much time it was going to save you and what that looked like, and it was going to be a tax savings to the citizens of Sherman to do this, then it might make sense to me. But I'd just like to see a little bit more.
Can we table this? Come back.
Well, there's no
action.
Gotta make a
We
motion.
were just kind
action.
of looking for a
can
head
bring it
nod,
back
whether to continue
I
down the
say do
path
it.
or.
Yeah, we'll all get some more information. Maybe we have questions that we can get answered and we can talk to our constituents and get more information about it.
Speeding up the
So-
process. I'm for that. So.
All right.
Absolutely. More speeding up
Thanks,
the
Rob.
process.
All right. This time we'll receive a presentation from Police Sergeant Brett Mullen on the Police Department's annual Halloween event, Fright Fest. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for letting me come and talk to you all this evening. So Fright Fest, this is the 20th anniversary since we started this event after the 9/11 attacks in 2001. And as you know, that we invite as many churches, business organizations to the event to set up a booth and hand out candy to kids. It gives a safe and secure place for parents to bring their kids to trick or treat. This year's event will be holding on Friday, October 29th between 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. One big change this year is we're going to be holding it at the Pecan Grove Athletic Complex rather than the municipal grounds as we have in years past. Given the construction going on the highway, and as you know, the large amounts of people that this event draws, figured that would help with there's actual parking out there and will help with traffic flow and get people getting in and out. And also it'll give us much more space for the event and to expand as this continues to get bigger and bigger each year. it's hard to take a head count, but we expect to have like 3,000 people at the event. So having it in a large open field such as the athletic complex will help us out a whole lot.
How many pieces of candy are we supposed to bring this year?
Enough to give it to 3,000 people. I
Yeah.
suppose. It's a lot of candy.
20,000 pieces. Yeah, exactly.
It's
Looks
quite a
like
bit.
more than that usually.
You don't
I
think,
didn't think 3,000.
yeah, you don't think Highway 1417 construction is going to cause any problems?
Well, and not as much as I think 75 would. And given the way the city is laid out over there, it would just help with the flow of in and outs. There's easy access to Highway 82, also 1417, which is under construction, like you said. But there is dedicated parking there, which we don't have necessarily around the municipal building as it stands in the way the street closures we do. So I just think it will provide for more better flow of traffic.
Absolutely.
You don't want to go back to Midway Mall.
Absolutely not.
That was a
I
disaster.
think they have my number blocked if I tried to call them to do it again anyway. So.
Dr.
that
Mullins,
was-
have y'all done it out there before? Because someone has done it out there.
I think last year we did not do Fright Fest. I think the Parks and Rec did a
We did a
caravan to
drive-through.
Candyland. I think they called
yeah.
it. They did like a drive-through kind of trick-or-treating event.
And this time will not be drive-through.
Right.
I want the citizens to realize that, because that's been a lot of the comments that I'm getting is that was not something they want to go through again.
Right. And I hope to have over 50 vendors there this year with the expanded space. I hope for the event to blow up. Like I said, it gets more and more popular with the citizens. We're getting more and more people out there. So I think having it there will allow us to expand and can compensate for that.
Thank y'all for continuing.
Thank you for doing
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we are to item G5, receive an update on the city of Sherman's ongoing projects. Mr.
Oh, boy.
Nate,
Yay.
love those
It's Nate.
shoes.
Council, it's been a solid 4 months since you've seen my smiling face up here, which means it's time for our quarterly or so drone presentation. So if Sean can cue up the video, we'll just jump right into the next 13 minutes of our lives and get this over with. So we're going to start on Lamberth Road. Obviously, this is the one we've had most questions about over the course of the last couple months. As you can see, we fixed the flooding problem by taking the road out. Yeah. So anyway, so we're replacing the one culvert here with 3 or 4 culverts in order to make sure this road is always traversable, even in times of heavy rain. Even though it's in such poor condition at the moment, we're hopeful that by December-ish that this will be completed and we have traffic back to normal in that area. And of course, there was the sewer line issue, which you can see right there, where the sewer line collapsed in the process of the construction, necessitated shutting down that period of time. This is the intersection of Brockett and Broughton. This is a Pam Howarth special that was requested. That, of course, Broughton is one of our narrowest streets, and it's also heavily trafficked. So we purchased some extra right of way and have, as you can see, created the basis of a new right-hand turn lane there that will hopefully allow more than one vehicle at a time to exist in that intersection. Still left to do, obviously, all new sidewalks. This still has to be paved. The reason it hasn't been yet, the crosswalk was up here. It'll be moved to down here, obviously, as the street moves. So we will be repaving that crosswalk, relining that, and then finishing this turn lane. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, that project will be.
Yeah, updated info on that is by end of October.
October, that's very soon.
7. Yeah. Right.
For our next video, we've just flown over Home Depot. If you can imagine, this is the Magnolia Townhome development, narrow lots, townhomes going in there across from the larger lots across the street. This, as we're picking it up, is Hillary Drive, heading toward the new executive apartment building that is nearing completion. I wanted to give you just kind of a aerial view of what this is going to look like once it's done. Of course, once Hillary is open, the city will be tearing out Knollwood through here to eliminate that 5-way stop at the end of the road. And you can kind of see the beginnings of Hillary Drive there. You can see the power lines crossing, my understanding, waiting on Encore to move those, and that's happening pretty much right now. So once that's done, construction can begin in earnest. Of course, this road goes away and TxDOT turns on its new stoplight, and we have a much nicer intersection. Also, a city crew replaced an old water pipe there. Pebblebrook Phase 4, this was just put through P&Z last month. This is about 140 new houses that will complete the Pebblebrook development. As you can see, it'll come right up to the high school. This is multifamily zoned over here. This is all single here. North here and get a good look at the Grove. Ton of work out here, obviously, over the course of the past 4 months. You can see the kind of general layout, how it's going in. Power lines have been strung. They've got poles up for a fence that will run all the way along here. Right now, I believe they're working on storm drain in order to shunt everything off to the creek down here. See the different pad sites going in, and then as we approach the multifamily portion of the property, even in the 6 days since this video was shot, there's already substantially more work done here. You can kind of see the pad sites that they've laid out for those different multifamily buildings, the clubhouse obviously being the first thing to go in. And this back portion here, a couple of townhomes round out that development. Look from the other side as well. As you might remember, the city negotiated with the developer in order to get a substantial portion of, we got Herman Baker Park up here, substantial portion of land in order to be able to run a walking trail that will go between Herman Baker Park and all the way down here to Moore Street in order to link Herman Baker Park up with the high school. South Travis, we just flew over the new bridge. I wanted to give you a look at our new annexation that we just set the calendar for. This is the area that will be known as Travis Heights. It will be all of this area all the way down to the creek. About 400 houses is the idea, with a connection on Travis where we just were, and a connection all the way up here to Bel Air Boulevard, which we will be in just a moment. So that would be 400 houses. I mean, that would be our largest development in several years, if not for Bel Air, which here we are. Of course, phase 2 is coming on over here, phase 3 back here. Phase 1, here's Bel Air Boulevard going in. At one point, I'm not sure if this is still the case, but they had 4 utility crews out there working simultaneously in order to that piping laid. Water. There is a portion there at the beginning for townhomes. I believe most of the rest of this, about 300 units in total, is just regular single family housing. Of course, this would be the 3rd phase, more single family back there. We've got the 2nd phase with multifamily kind of circling here, right there. And the city is paying to run a new water line all the way down 1417 here that kind of juts over and connects up with the water line at Schulman's. All of their trees out there. Heading over to another Councilwoman Howarth special, Park Street. We've been waiting on the railroad for about 5 years now.
That's a
But
song,
we
right?
are, what's that?
That's a
I
song.
thought about singing it. I wasn't gonna sing it to that.
That's the only one that gets
This is
Sam Howarth
a
Way.
this is a project 5 or 6 years in the making, of course, since Lake Street flooded way back in the spring of 2001 or whatever. The good news about this project is the railroad, after much hemming and hawing, did decide to go ahead and abandon this spur. So instead of having to do 2 railroad crossings, we only had to do 1. As you can see, the new crossing is in, the new signalization
Excuse
is
me,
up.
can I ask a question? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Is that the spur that goes all the way south through, north through town? Does it continue to go north,
Yeah, I believe it goes all the way,
all to the grain elevators?
unless it
that
cuts over
correct?
East Street.
That's correct.
It's not being used, and for sure now it won't be used because we've cut
Okay.
it off.
Maybe our Parks and Recs folks can work some magic there.
There's some really bad crossovers right there, so we may need to talk about.
Absolutely are.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I've
No,
just,
no,
I've been
that's a
wanting
great
to
question.
ask.
We believe the signalization, we just need to make sure that works. Other than that, the railroad's piece of this is done. All that's left to do is plant some nice grass along the edges and stripe the middle. We are hopeful that by the middle of October, we can have a nice little ribbon cutting ceremony out there and finally finish the Park Street connection. Heading to FM 1417, a lot of work done here in the past couple weeks in order to prepare this area for paving. Of course, once this area is paved, traffic will be pushed over onto that side. They'll tear up these lanes and create the connection there. This project, if you'll remember, hinged heavily on the Sand Creek Bridge, which had to be removed entirely, lowered, and replaced. As you'll see, that bridge is just nearly done. And of course, this is talking about 3-lane roads. This bridge was made for the capacity of 3 lanes, as you'll see. 2 lanes right here, so they have the 3rd lane already there ready to go for whenever that project happens. Sidewalks on both sides as well. Project heading over to Washington Meadows, got a dozen houses under construction there. Got some brand new paving that's happened in the last couple days. It's another about 135 houses or so at the corner there of Washington and 1417. Quick look at that before we head back to 1417. Once the portion of the project south of Washington Street here is done, of course, construction will continue to the north all the way to 82 eventually. You can get a really good look from above as to what the final horizontal section of this is going to look like. This side, 2 lanes being over here side, all these lanes go away. Possibility, of course, to expand. Work they're doing right here is getting the storm drain ready. Once the storm drains are in, then pave that side, then song different verse, move the traffic over there and do the other side. This cutout here, of course, is for the street extension that we hope will go up there someday. Waiting for that until it is. And then we've got US 75, of course. No drone presentation would be complete without US 75. The bridge, of course, is open with the 4-way stops on both sides. I'm not sure if they've paved this yet, but they're getting very close to paving that frontage road on that side. The other frontage road, of course. That's crazy. Clinton has said that they actually have the new Park Street exit here ready to go. We're not sure why they haven't opened it yet. Instead, they've kept the suicide trap there. And of course, the project will include a brand new bridge across Post Oak Creek there. And Park Street, it's good to note, Park Street will start right here and it'll go all the way over to Highway 11 once that's finished up. Exciting, especially if you live in that part of town. Get a little bit closer for the meat of the project here. Most of the work, as I understand it right now, is building retaining walls all along the sides to raise the highway up out of the floodplain. A lot of dirt moving, excuse me. See, these are all retaining walls that have been stacked up here in preparation of installation. Approach Center Street Bridge here. This bridge has come along a lot more quickly than its Washington counterpart. It's fun to notice this. So this bridge, before they tore it down, there were 8 vertical piers holding the highway up. There are now 20. So we've gone from 8 to 20. That's a demonstration of just how much more substantial the highway is going to be. You can see the turn lanes kind of there as these walls go in. This wall's already gone. This one they're putting. Once Center Street and Washington Street are reopened, then the real fun starts as they close down Lamar and Houston for some period of decades. And
They close them both at the same time?
I think so, yeah. While they take all of this away and
Thought they'd reroute.
well, that's just going to be lots of fun. And Washington Street Bridge, much, not nearly as far along. They're still working on the storm drain underneath that, or at least they were last week. Obviously, that has to be done before any done. You're seeing, oh, I should have gone back. Did want to point out, of course, this is the section where the entire highway will be up on piers instead of on dirt.
Right there.
Yeah, I wanted to show you this right here. Already have some of those going in. That'll kind of give you an idea. My understanding is this is actually for an exit, not the main lanes of the highway.
It's entrance.
Entrance, okay.
Should be entrance.
Entrance onto the highway, the main lanes, of course. The idea being in between Washington and Houston, all that will be up. You'll be able to see right underneath it.
Big aqueduct, the big boat there. Is all that going away or is all that?
It stays.
They didn't get the weed whacker down there.
There's Washington, of course. You can see the drainage work there being done.
I can't believe it's staying.
And then,
So just pause it for just a second, if you would. One other just point of clarification. So it will be an elevated structure from Houston Lamar all the way to Travis Street. Way up there.
right here, all the way.
All the way up over to here.
Oh, okay. See there. I guess we can watch this. And then, of course, this is the northern project there at. Final video of the night. I wanted to give you an idea of what we're looking at with Texas Instruments. This is, of course, Texas Instruments as it exists today. Everything you see here, this is slightly smaller than what the first phase as far as a footprint. Show you here. They own all of this, all the way across this creek, all the way back here to this tree line. 558 factor, or at least one of them. A massive new facility that would occupy about 4.7 million feet of space once it's finally built out. So the property line is going back here. This little Dharma initiative type facility, no one really knows what that's for, but that would be destroyed as part of this project.
Good job, Bruce.
Oh, okay. We'll see. Bruce knows. And that concludes the presentation.
Good job.
Good job, Nate.
Didn't even make me sick.
Try.
All right, thank you, Nate. So we are down to the point remove or consider qualifications of boards or commissions. We have an appointment to the Animal Control Advisory Committee. I want to make a motion on that.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Aaron Jason Boosie to the Animal Control Advisory Committee.
I'm sorry, can we table this till after executive? So I request.
Sure. Okay, we'll handle it later. All right, we are to media questions. Michael, you got any questions? Okay. Council comments. Andrew, I'm going to start with you tonight.
Well, thank you. I think it's wonderful that we're a growing city and that we're working well together. And I appreciate our departments who are doing the things that need to be done to watch and make sure that we do the best for our citizens.
And I want to remind everybody that this is several different awarenesses. One is it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And to please, gentlemen, remind your wives if they are 40 or older to please be checked. And ladies, if you are 40 or older, please be checked. I also want to compliment our Parks Department because I have seen a remarkable amount of work being done at Cherry Street Park. Now we have walking trails at Cherry Street Park. So I'm really impressed, and a bridge that'll cross over I didn't see you there. I thought I was missing you. And over that creek that I think last forever or for a very long time as opposed to the wooden ones. And I also have to thank our city's street department, because I've been on everybody about Park Street and Broughton Street, and y'all are going to get that done for the first of the year, and then I'm going to have to figure out someplace else. So thank you for your work.
Nothing on this side, Mr. Mayor.
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
But nothing much, but I did want to piggyback off of Councilwoman Houth's comments about the breast cancer awareness. So I do know Women Rock were hosting a dine-in at Texas Roadhouse today. So for anyone that wants to attend there, I think a portion of the food proceeds go to their cause. So
I'll save my comments for executive session, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Just a few announcements. As you've heard this evening, the Sherman Police Department will be moving Fright Fest to Pecan Grove Park this year on October 30th. The new location should provide a lot of room for the crowds with added parking as well. Make plans to bring out the kids for this great event. Trick or treat on Travis Street will be held Thursday, October 29th, starting at 6 p.m. We're expecting more than 24 local businesses providing candy, so the event should be really exciting for the young ones this year. Finally, tonight, don't forget that Election Day is on November 2nd. In-person voting will once again be offered across the street at the Sherman Municipal Ballroom, as well as several other locations throughout the county. There's plenty of places to exercise your right to vote. All right, at this time, the city council will now hold a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, section 551.074, to deliberate on the annual performance evaluation of the city manager, and it's section 551.087 to discuss the Sherman Hospital update, Shepherd Place, Project Mammoth, and Slambury. So at 6:34, we will adjourn into session. Thank you.
Absolutely. I won't do it again. Not one word. Not one word.
They don't want the wrap. Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah. We'll take that.
They don't want that wrap, do they? I'm gonna go in there actually. Get ahead of them. I can't get out of here.